Hello everybody, I am the Black Sigma, or you could just call me Eric, and welcome to another Zelda month video. Now you may be thinking, a tier list? Come on, isn't that pretty easy content compared to all of the, challenges you were doing before? I mean, you really dropped off with that birthday special, but no, I have a reason. And that reason is that all the videos I've done this month have been about celebrating, this franchise, its past. I've played Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening, Skyward Sword. All of these for celebrating those games on their own. This video is about celebrating the franchise as a whole, and it is building up to my final Zelda month video, celebrating the future of the franchise. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's get this tier list out of the way. First of all, I have not played either of the Four Swords games. That's Link to the Past plus Four Swords. I guess technically I have played Link to the Past, but I haven't played the Four Swords out of it. And I have, funnily enough, played Ages, but not Seasons. What am I doing with my life? Why would I play one of the two linked games without getting the full experience? I dunno. Haven't played Minish Cap or Triforce Heroes. And I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom either, funnily enough, but I'll save that one for later. Everything else in this lineup I have played in some form or another. And so, let's begin with the beginning. The original Legend of Zelda. A game not meant for the current era. This was meant for back in the day when, beating a video game would be a summer-long activity. You'd put your time and effort into it. You wouldn't have a guide to go off of. All you would have was the vague instructions of the game manual, the tips and tricks, but not necessarily where do I go, what do I do level of stuff. Like, there's a dungeon in this game hidden under a bush that you'd burn pretty arbitrarily. Like, hey, this one bush is blocking a crossroad, I guess I'll burn it to get through. Things like that. It's one of those games that was designed for, you don't have a map or a compass, you don't have the internet to guide you. What you do have is your own free will to explore this land to your heart's content. Does it hold up today? God, no. But is it a good Zelda game? It's alright. Yeah, that's about it. The spirit of adventure and exploration were magnificent at the time, but, that's now overshadowed, and some of it could even be considered flaws, like some of the dungeons have invisible walls that you straight up can't know they are there unless you happen to, or not invisible walls, sorry, doors that look like just normal walls, you don't have to bomb them, just normal walls that you would never know have doorways in them. Like, even if you check the map, doorways aren't shown on the map until you can pass through them. So, until you walk through a random wall, it's not showing up on your map. That's dodgy as hell. Most of it gets right, but it has its problems. The Adventure of Link, a completely different game from its predecessor. It took the exploration and wonderment and adventure and narrowed it down into a pretty linear path with odd RPG elements thrown in, like experience and leveling. There's side-scrolling segments that take place when you run into random encounters. It's bizarre. It's also brutally difficult your first time playing because the game doesn't checkpoint at all until the final dungeon of the game. Sorry. It doesn't checkpoint game overs until the final dungeon of the game. You get 3 lives. A life-based system in a Zelda game. It doesn't make sense by modern standards, but back in the day, it only had one other game before it. They took the open world RPG and made it a linear RPG. A brutally difficult one. Does that deserve to truly demerit it to the worst Zelda game of all time? Not really. I mean, I would say it is the worst one I have played, but it's not bad. Yeah, that's it. We're not going to use F tier at all. Oops. Next up, of course, Link to the Past, the true sequel to the first Zelda game. It went back to the open-air exploration formula, doubled down on it in some incredible ways. There's a lot more secrets and treasure, just random things you can find. But everything feels fruitful, like, hey, here's a bunch of rupees that you can use to go upgrade your equipment. Or here's your, heart piece that, it's just more of a Zelda game than either of the first two were, which is a weird unit of measurement, right? To say what feels most like a Zelda game without, Zelda games can't be defined. Everything here is a Zelda game, and while a lot of them have a formula, a lot of them stray from it in creative and unique ways. But point is, Link to the Past, the third game in the franchise, took the formula the first one gave it, solidified that formula, and made it the true adventure experience, trademark, for generations to come. Every other game on this list, save for Breath of the Wild and maybe Tears of the Kingdom, follows the formula that Link to the Past set up. Link to the Past is probably the true Zelda experience, because I would say it's the original, even more so than the first two games. Again, that's really not how that works, but I hope you get where I'm coming from with this. And this game will be our first S tier. Because, well, other than the fact I just explained how monumental it was for the franchise, it's also one of the most fun in my opinion. But there are better. Moving on to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The best Zelda game ever made. It took the formula Link to the Past used and brought it into a 3D world, expanding the combat in unique and interesting ways. All the 3D movement options gave you new ways to deal with enemies, new ways to use items. The story was so much deeper and more impressive, and it's S tier. But for some reason I like Link to the Past more. I can boast about how much I love Ocarina of Time. I love it. But I can't... And I can explain why I like Ocarina of Time. But I can't explain why I like Link to the Past. And maybe that is why I like it. Yeah. I can hear the torches being lit, the pitchforks being raised. But, moving on from Ocarina of Time, we get Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask, made in very little time after the game that came before it. How could it possibly live up to... It's better than Ocarina. Purely for... Well, not even purely for anything. While the story of Ocarina of Time is an epic fantasy that will be told forever, Majora's Mask is a lot more down to earth. In a 3-day time period, every resident of Clocktown and every other settlement in the game has their own routine, their own wants and needs. They all go through their lives as they normally would. But the threat of the falling moon looms over them. They handle this in different ways. Some deny it, some wish to flee. But the idea of an impending doom, that no matter how many times you try to undo it, you reverse time, but the threat is still there. You are struggling desperately against an inevitable, terrible fate. And you fight this because of all the people in this world that you have come to know and care about. And eventually, persistence is the key. Eventually, a new day will dawn. Things will get better. Struggling against hardships, tragedy, and moving on past it. That is what Majora's Mask stands for, in my eyes at least. And that is just a bit more powerful than what Ocarina of Time did for me. Moving on, Link's Awakening, specifically DX for some reason. Don't know why they didn't throw in the Switch version, but, you know, it's a short, fun Zelda adventure. And that's all I can say about that. Actually, we'll bump it up to A for now. Because this feels like Link to the Past if you wanted to play Link to the Past in under 4 hours. If you want to beat Link to the Past in a day and want a true full experience, the short amount of time doesn't really diminish what Link's Awakening is. It still tells a beautiful story in how little time it has. I love it. I love that it is compacting a Zelda experience into something more bite-sized while maintaining the integrity. It gets an A tier. Moving right along, let's go Oracle of Ages. Yeah, it's okay. It's a fun Zelda adventure, but honestly, I don't remember most of it, because I played it a while ago. And maybe if it was paired with Seasons, it'd go up on the list. But as it stands, it's a passable experience. Moving right along, Phantom Hourglass. Yeah, I don't really have much of an explanation for that. It's quite forgettable, in my opinion. That's about it. I've beaten this game, and I couldn't tell you about 95% of its plot. That's not good by Zelda standards. From what I do remember, it was enjoyable to play, but the fact nothing sticks with me doesn't help that vote of confidence. Spirit Tracks has some of the same problems as Phantom Hourglass, but I really liked the train gameplay. I really liked the train gameplay. No, it stays where it stays where it was. Moving right along. Oh, I missed Wind Waker. I haven't played that either. Yeah, that's a big one. That's like top of my list of I need to play it, but I haven't. Oops. Then on to Twilight Princess. You want to know where Twilight Princess goes? What I think of this Zelda game and its darker themes and whatnot? You know, being quite literally darker, but also, you know, the young boy from the forest once again. Thing with this game is Link forms a lot of personal connections with some of the NPCs, which is something I quite enjoy in Zelda games, as you could probably tell from Link's Awakening, Majora's Mask, being towards the top of the list. It's gonna top Ocarina. Again. Whoops. I'm really knocking that best game of all time down a ton, aren't I? Oh well. Now, here we come to Skyward Sword. Now this is an interesting one. You see, I love the characters and the story, and just this game hits me really hard emotionally for reasons I don't even understand compared to, like, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. I grew attached to the Zelda in this game really quickly just because she was presented as a childhood friend rather than some magical predestined princess. Link didn't save her because Fi told him it was his destiny. Link saved her because he cared. And I love that. However, There's a lot of backtracking to the same areas. The motion controls can be kinda subpar. With the backtracking comes redoing the imprisoned boss fight 3 times. And even though it introduces unique mechanics to keep that fresh, it gets annoying real fast. Do I knock Ocarina down another peg, or do I not? Is my question with Skyward Sword. I'm not going to knock Ocarina down a peg. Skyward Sword, I love a lot of things about it, but there's just enough for me to say this game is flawed compared to the others. Moving right along, Link Between Worlds. Funnily enough, a lot of people sleep on Link Between Worlds. But this is gonna come as a shock. It is Link to the Past, but better. Set in the same world, the same Hyrule, with even more collectibles, introducing a new mechanic that takes the two-dimensional limits of a dungeon, which is normally you have a floor and the puzzle is on the floor, to including the walls of a room in the puzzle element. That's just cool. That you take the limits of a top-down 2D perspective and you mess with it. The walls of a room used to just be the walls. You cannot pass beyond this point. This is just the area the puzzle is contained in. But now the walls are part of the room, part of the puzzle. And I like that twist. And it has everything that A Link to the Past has, plus that twist, plus more memorable characters to get attached to. Link Between Worlds beats Link to the Past. Moving on to our final 2 selections. Breath of the Wild, an incredible game that completely changed the formula. It really just... It went back to its roots, while still improving and changing on what came before, and it does beat Link to the Past. But I'd still have more fun replaying Link Between Worlds. I have beaten, gotten every Korok beaten, Breath of the Wild, twice. I have gotten every shrine beaten Breath of the Wild 3 times. And at this point, it's getting dull. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is so much greater, with so much more to explore, and yet, once you have finished exploring it, there's not much else left to do. Sure, you can go kill a gold Lionel for the 100th time, but what's that gonna get ya? Yeah. Breath of the Wild is fun, but I don't think it's as replayable as some of the other titles. Also, I'm retroactively dropping Link to the Past below Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. I don't know why. Here's the problem with me making this list. My opinions on these games is very fluid. It often changes frequently depending on what I've played the most recently or what I'm in the mood for. So none of this is solid. This is all up to change. But as it stands, Link Between Worlds, Breath of the Wild, Majora's Mask, Twilight, Link to the Past, Ocarina, Skyward Sword, Link's Awakening, Ages, Spirit Tracks, First Game, Phantom Hourglass, Adventure of Link, and Tears of the Kingdom, a game that I obviously haven't played and should therefore go in this tier because it doesn't exist yet. It's preemptively going in F tier. Set your expectations low, don't have expectations, and you won't be disappointed. Jokes aside, we'll see what I think about Tears of the Kingdom before it's even been released in the next video, where I attempt to predict this game's entire plot. I'm probably gonna be wrong, but it's gonna be fun to try. I'll see you in that one. Bye.